Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Designer's Den. I am super excited today to welcome two amazing people and two very good friends of mine. We've got Paige Leitman over here waving, and we've got Ben Heisler over there waving. They're here on either side of me. This is the best sandwich, the very best sandwich. But today, we are going to talk for a little bit first about an adventure that Paige and Ben wrote for season 9. So that was previous season before Rime of the Frost Maiden. And then we're just going to talk a little bit about your general design philosophy, what you do, and the countless other adventures that the two of you have written. I started counting them and I just gave up. Okay, we're hearing, sorry, once again, we've got a can't hear Paige. Alright, let's see. Can't hear Paige. That is generally always the opposite of the problem. Let's see. Funny. Okay. Well, anyways, Paige doesn't want to toot her own horn. But yes, like she said, you know, sometimes you start looking at your website where the two of you have updated it, and you're just like, whew. I mean, I definitely know we hear music but no Paige and Ben. Really, I fixed this last time. Let's see. Hold on. It's probably because since last time I ran this show, well, rebuilt my entire computer. Okay. But you know, it was jaunty music. Very jaunty music. But yeah, no, since the last time I ran this show, I had to redo all my settings, because, what was it, Saturday? Friday, Paige? No, I can't, yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Are you? No. No, I can't hear you.
I'm just sitting here trying.
I can hear Ben.
No echo.
Oh.
What about now?
Yeah,
brother.
Oh, you know, it's just one thing. After we are not lip reading, but you know, with not hearing things, we're at least not hearing Alan's computer preparing for liftoff in the other room. Okay. Bring it up. All right. Good thing we didn't start talking about the adventure yet. All right. Well, now we have everyone here and accounted for, present, and volume, and my computer is good. Paige, you can't mute yourself.
Can y'all hear us now?
You can't mute yourself and then...
Well, Ben and I are playing the game
I
where one of
know.
us is muted and one of us is not.
Spoiler
Yes.
alerts. I'm the one who's muted.
Thomas says we, so I'm gonna go with yes. Dig it. All right, we are here. Okay, so let's kind of just go ahead and get into the conversation about this adventure then. So I've actually had the joy of playing this adventure, and I don't get to do that very often. John Still ran this one, actually this whole series, the Doors and Corners series, for myself and Connor and a couple other people. So why don't one of you just walk our viewers through the, I guess, premise for this adventure and how it kind of ties into the rest of the season.
Cool. I'll go first. So what we have with 917 in the hand is the the last part of the trilogy, I believe, for Doors and
Part
Corners.
3.
Part
Yeah.
3. So in it, you are exploring the last level of the dungeon under the Canyon of Screams and hoping to find the last of the Bloody Hooves so that you can ride off to glory.
Yes. And glorious it was.
I will say, for those of you who are listening or who are listening to the replay of this, I would like to give you a formal spoilers alert. We're gonna spoil some spoilery McSpoilers for this adventure. So if you don't want those spoilers because you haven't played it yet, then put this on your bookmark on your list to read afterwards.
Yeah, I can, I'll make a note down in the panel at the point where we pick up after the conversation about the adventure then. And I'm going to go ahead and post in the chat the link to the adventure for anyone who's wanting to look at it or stare at Ben and Paige's name on the cover of it while we talk about it. I know, right? It's exciting. So it's part of season 9, which is all set in Avernus, which is all very exciting. And I think actually, yes, it is the last tier 3 adventure.
I believe there's one after it that is tier 3 that is not part of a series.
Yeah, you are correct. It's Claire's adventure after that kind of wraps up that end, and then we go into the tier 4 stuff where I totally didn't die. I actually...
A lot of people are saying that, I hear.
I actually did not. I was probably the one who should have, but I was the cleric. I was the life cleric. I was needed, though. Services desperately needed. In this one too, actually. So the Doors and Corners series is a bit of a, so what you in video games call an escort mission.
Yeah.
But
you're not wrong.
But it is a very exciting escort mission. In that you're leading Dara, the chosen of Ilmater, down through hell to gather the armies of hell to come and save the day, or not quite.
I mean, ideally, so, as Elturiel was pulled into Avernus, the idea is there was a whole bunch of Hell Riders that got pulled with when Zariel first went to hell. And we're trying to scoop them all up so that we can rescue Elturiel. And because when they got to hell, they kind of hunkered down and basically put themselves into suspended animation, knowing that they would be needed one day. So these 3 mods are Pokemon, Pikachu, gotta catch them all, for these entombed Hell Riders. And of course, the one thing you need desperately while going through hell is a 14-year-old girl.
The 14-year-old girl definitely led to some of our most interesting roleplay opportunities in that Connor, that'd be Connor Self, who will be on this, I think, next week. Covered up my not calendar, so I can't actually read it right now.
It looks so fancy.
I know, right? I have too much stuff written on my walls that isn't for prying eyes. But so he was playing like a oh, that's a sound. He was playing like this goody I don't want to say goody two shoes, but very good aligned person who yeah, I know you're laughing because you know Connor.
I was about to say, I can't imagine Connor playing this character. Do goes on.
He really just wanted to help this poor troubled youth, and for once I was also playing a good aligned, not chaotic good even, just like actual good. I know, right? It's hard. Grandma Dara, she just wants to patch up your boo-boos and keep you out of trouble, and so help me God, if you go through there and stab him one more time, I am not coming to help you. But some very interesting roleplay opportunities because like you've got to protect the child. Otherwise, things don't go very well.
And at our table, the child has 0 sense of self-preservation, so that made it even more exciting.
She had no self-preservation at our table either. She was ready to charge to her death.
Yup. And she gonna find it if she keeps that up.
No! We handcuffed her to Connor.
Fair. We were actually, one of our players was actually thinking about getting one of those toddler leashes for her.
Yeah. So I know this was an Adventurers League adventure, so you kind of got given the premise of the plot, as happens with that sort of thing. But how did the two of you, go about coming up with the rest of the story for this? What were your inspirations behind it?
So we got the outline from the admins, and we're excited to get a dungeon crawl since neither of us particularly love dungeon crawls. So it was our chance to do something different. Kind of like how with Black Road, we got the opportunity to put our flair on a caravan duty mod. So that was pretty cool. We kind of quickly figured out that I was going to take the first half and one of the bonus objectives, and Paige was going to take the second half and the other bonus objective, and then we would kind of meet in the middle and massage each other's stuff until it was good.
Until it was nice and relaxed. Yeah.
Yes.
And as an aside, it was kind of an interesting thing because we got the nod for this 4 weeks before it was due.
Yeah, this was that one, I think.
It might have been 5, but I think it was 4 weeks.
It was a
before
short
it was due.
turnaround.
It was. The primary author had something come up, and that something that came up was Rime of the Frost Maiden.
Well,
So, if I had one of those 2 projects to work on, I'll tell you which one I'd pick too.
So we got it. Road, obviously.
So we had to turn this motor scooter around like fast, and it's 6 hours of content and it's high level. We were like, can we do this? I mean, shit, yeah, we can do this. It's just a matter of get her done. And I hope we have a get her done reputation for that.
You absolutely have a get her done reputation.
In addition, because the prior author had been in development, by the time we got the outline, it was pretty detailed.
Okay. What? I was about to say that's helpful, but actually, coming from the point of view of someone who's been given a pretty detailed outline, it's not necessarily helpful because then you're really kind of pinned in as to what you can do. You're more going through the maze and trying to draw on the walls rather than create your own path.
If we'd had all the time in the world, and had started from the get-go with it, we would have made some different design decisions probably. But with 4 weeks, I think it was 4 weeks, and it included Thanksgiving in that time.
Yes, it did.
Oh, you don't have anything to do then? Nothing important?
Correct.
Nothing at all. But this was back when we could go see people, so like it's not like now when you can give us that and be like, oh, well, it's not like we're going anywhere. It sounds great. The days when we could go see people.
I know. So because we had such an abbreviated time frame, it was like, this is our outline, Great! Sounds good to us. Cut it in half. You do that half. I do that half. Then we'll switch. Go.
Oh my goodness. God, I can't even really imagine that. I had some tight turnarounds, but I don't think I've ever had anything. Well, you know what? I'm trying to think of how many weeks I had on my Dreams of the Red Wizard thing.
I was about to say, wasn't your DRW pretty tight?
It might have been about the same. 6 hours of content, but I am but me.
Yes, we have double the neurons in, well, maybe 1.8 times the neurons in our writing team here. You've got whatever.
He's got the looks.
I've got the ability to make faces. It's fabulous.
Yes. Yeah. So that's kind of like how this adventure came to be. So you chose it for I guess this segment because it was one of your newer ones, or what was kind of the reasoning behind wanting to talk about this specific adventure?
Well, one.
Look at me.
Sean was like, Paige, you chose it. You sent it to me.
Fair.
I mean, I put out on Twitter, tell me what you want to talk about, and this is apparently what we got. Or this is what Paige picked.
This is what Paige picked. So I did pick it because it's new. Our most recent one that has come out is 10-1 The Frozen North, and I think it was supposed to hit DM's Guild Friday, maybe Thursday last week, but there was a hitch with DM's Guild and something, so it's delayed till whatever. So I didn't want to talk about something that you couldn't get yet, because that seemed kind of rude. Plus, I mean, a 6-hour tier 3 mod is a unique sort of effort. Like, it's real different than writing my beloved tier 2 stuff. Because by tier 3, you have got to expect your players to have all kinds. Can I say BS on your stream?
You absolutely can.
To have all kinds of random bullshit going on.
I talk just like I talk on the round table here.
Okay, fair. I just wanted to know what the borders were.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if there are borders, I should know them before I open my mouth again.
Yeah. So it was neat in that extent. Plus, it tier 3 is hella hard to write for because I'm just gonna say it. The tier 3 appropriate monsters in the monster manual are chumps.
Yes.
And the tier 3 monsters in Volos and Mordenkainen's are much better. But, I mean, they're ultimately not a real tough match for most Adventures League adventures, because there's a lot of really technical D&D players that play to the very edges of min-max, and they're just going to eat whatever you throw at them.
I was going to say, I love how you put very technical as a very nice way to say super cheesy.
There's
Queso fantastico.
In Wisconsin, we know it's Thomas, wants to know, how do you write a tier 3 mod that isn't an immediate TPK or an immediately apparent cakewalk? Considering, as you're saying, the myriad possibilities of min-maxing AL players, what they may have gotten into by the time they're tier 3. God, boy, is that a question. I'm gonna let you try this one first, and then I can chime in with my feedback from my last playtest.
So Ben and I have discovered 2 things that allow us to cheat McCheaterface with high-level content.
It's not cheating if it works.
Yeah, I was
One,
about to say, stop calling it cheating.
there's no rule against it. 1, traps are not counted as part of an adventure CR. 2, poison is not counted as part of the encounter CR.
Mm-hmm.
So we put an ass load of traps in this thing that make it difficult to have a straight up fight, because the enemy side is always more informed than you are.
Well, that makes sense. You're going into their home turf.
Right. In addition, I feel like in D&D generally, the players are always gonna rescue the dragon and slay the evil princess and triumph at the end, because that's just D&D. We want to win at the end. So the more interesting thing to do is to ask the characters to make a choice. And I think those are the parts of the mod that really stick out and are memorable and enjoyable.
You got anything to add there, Ben?
So from my point of view, as far as making tier 3 adventures interesting is to look at take a look at resources that are not considered traditional. So when we look at D&D, we always think of hit points, we think of gold, we think of things like that, but there's a lot other metrics and ways that you can look at how adventurers are doing and things that they can pay for, or rather pay with, that they may not have considered, which is how you end up with, at least in this mod, we're talking about spoilers, the whole first section of it, where you're in the multiple different testing rooms, are almost all designed to test or make the characters pay in non-traditional currencies.
Yep.
Pay in magic items, pay in charity, pay in knowing that you can't, being able to say you can't answer a question.
I think we gave up a buttload of spell slots at one point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And then promptly regretted it.
Yep. Paige is running it for a group, and one of the players just gave away their Sunblade.
So
as for one of the trials, and I'm just like, that's great. That's perfectly what it was designed for.
Tell.
That specific room, or are you talking about something else?
That room.
Oh. So for instance, in that room, it's an opportunity to give up. There's one of the trials is benevolence, I believe, or is it charity, that has you give up magic items so that Hell Riders can succeed. And so one of the things I love about Magic, and I know that you also play a lot of Magic Gathering on the stream, is that there's a lot of, traditionally Magic, you look at mana as your resource, but if you're a black player, you also look at your life total and spending that as a resource, or sacrificing things. And that was what I had in mind when I did a lot of this, specifically with sacrificing items, sacrificing spell slots, sacrificing various things that you can fight your way through and do hit points, but it's the better path is to strategically decide which things you want to get rid of and what resources you can go without that normally you wouldn't. How that drills down to making a tier 3 mod that isn't a cakewalk or TPK, I always go for at least 125% of XP for challenge, but I go for what fits the scenario. So, for instance, one of the other rooms in there, which is Peace, is a riff on one of the old D&D opens where you fight a creature that you literally cannot kill. You kill it and it turns into another creature, it gets bigger. In mine, I believe it goes from a hill giant to a
storm giant
to an Empyrean, I believe, or some other kind of giant angel.
Solar?
Maybe it's I have a Solar somewhere else.
No, it was. I think it was an Empyrean. We did not fight it. I was very glad because afterwards he told us what would have happened, and I was like, I only have so many heals.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I was trying to figure out interesting encounters where that turn D&D on its head. And if I'm at the point where I'm throwing something at you via the DM that goes past things that you should be fighting, then that's something maybe you shouldn't be fighting, and that's a message. Similarly, in my recent DRW mod, there's a fair amount of death giants that are just walking around at tier 3, and they're a tier 4 challenge, and if you see them around, maybe you shouldn't pick that fight.
You've wandered into a zone in World of Warcraft that's above your level. You should probably go back and find an appropriately leveled zone.
Actually,
muted.
It's more like walking around in town, like one of the neutral towns, and Are you really gonna start a fight with the town guards or not? As long as you don't start the fight with the town guards, you're fine. But if you do, they're level like a bazillion and are gonna chump you.
Yeah, I might have done that. You do that about once, and then you're like, this is a neutral zone.
So, but past that, getting back to the question, when there is a fight that is actually required, because I don't tend to do fights that have requirements. In my section, the one fight that basically you're required to walk into, you can social your way out of.
Yep.
But at that point, I look for interesting encounters that I think the player characters should have trouble with, especially if they've already given up a bunch of resources, but it's certainly within the bounds of things that they can take. And the way that you get through that and figure it out, it's a lot of testing. It's a lot of playing the game. It's a lot of running it. It's a lot of seeing what tables have got. And I have the benefit, and I'm blessed to have run so many cons and gone to so many, that there's a math to it. But for me, it's more of an art. And I take a look at it and I say, all right, given this, and this, what can I throw at them that will not kill them? And for the most part, I haven't fucked that up yet. So knocking on wood here.
Knocking on that wood. Yeah. And I kind of agree. Like, so my Red Wizards ones also is tier 3. Kind of went with that same philosophy. I had a really good mix of the pillars in mine, which that's another thing. Like, trying to do the various pillars at tier 3 is also like, because exploration, a lot of the traps or the traditional stuff can be a cakewalk. Somebody's got a passive perception of 33. What do you do about that? You
You have invisibility cast on everything.
yeah. But that there's various ways to deal with that, and varying ways to deal with the fights. Particular method that I like to go with is the death by 1,000 tiny cuts.
The 40 kobolds in a trench coat method.
One at a time, yeah. Just wearing down those resources available. Like, yeah, sure. You can absolutely just keep cutting these down, but if you got spell slots, you got a limited number of spell slots. So like, if there's gonna be a fight and that's gonna be like the thing, you got to defeat this. Of course, I do always like to have a method aside from actual combat, but like, if that's the way the min-max party wants to approach it, like, why make it easy on them? Let's have we got a random encounter in the swamp, and the odds are pretty good that you're gonna be fighting some catoblepas. Which, whoops, my playtest group here in Chicago playtested that. I wasn't part of it, but my friend ran it, and they TPK'd in the very first encounter.
But it's good to surprise players like that, because by the time you get through level 2, it's like, yeah, I'm a badass. We're gonna go into level 3. Stomp! Readjust your expectations, sir.
Yeah, and Swamp, a lovely place to fight a dragon. That was the other thing too. Like, there be dragons in the Mirror of Dead Men. So they were actually like scanning the skies and everything, and not paying attention to their surroundings, which is one way of dealing with that really high perception. Sure, you notice everything, but you're really focused up here as you walk into the quicksand. You can't be looking up and down. You just...
Yep. Entirely fair.
It don't work like that. So, like, I think there's a lot of different, methodologies for working through those resources or working around those, mathematical odds of...
Yeah, and I think, like, we tend to stack our adventures more to the deadly side. That way, the DM can always pull their punches. It's hard to get an encounter that's underpowered and have the DM on the fly make it appropriate.
That is
but
true.
It's easier to have an overpowered encounter, and then on the fly, the DM makes it appropriate. And that's sometimes as easy as putting in guidance that says, you know, you have the main bad guy, you have the spellcaster, and then put 2 of the other, you know, speed bumps in there. And if they're still doing really good on bottom of round 2, put 2 more speed bumps in there.
And if they're doing extremely good, you can just add another one of these big bads. Yep, and that's
infinite intellect of hours. Use as many as you need.
Why? That just sounds awful.
Because they just mean that's why.
It's true though. And yeah, Dingo Yet, realizing as a DM you can run a creature optimally or suboptimally. They don't always have to make the best choices or the worst. You know, some of your opponents are intelligent or not, you know.
Well, in the Avernus adventures, you're mostly fighting devils, and devils are at least as smart as the half-orc barbarian.
Yeah, no, and
likely, and before last week, they were likely smarter than your orc barbarian or fighter, but that's changed.
And they're notoriously tricky. Notoriously tricky. You can't trust Devil by what he says.
That's why the encounter where you're trying to get Hadriel, the Commander Roger Delarue's Celestial Griffin, free. It is entirely a role-playing encounter with a very powerful devil in Amnesu.
Yeah. Okay. So gonna kind of just shift gears a little bit here away from this specific adventure and just kind of talk about your design process as a whole. But as I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce the giveaway for today. And I guess if the 2 of you want it, you can enter the giveaway too. But I have this really cool notebook, the Icewind Dale special cover, and it's gridded. It's hard to see the grids, so I'm not gonna try to do that. I'm gonna go ahead and start that giveaway. And then, all right. But yeah, so tier 3, tier 4 is not what you prefer to write. At this point, I'm actually beginning to think that you like writing caravan adventures because you just wrote another one.
I mean, technically yes, but I fucking destroyed the caravan in the intro. Like 4 minutes into the adventure, the caravan is no more.
I mean, with an avalanche, the same way that it's done in 10.00. It's a good thing that was, you know, well coordinated.
That is true. Yeah, /giveaway /raffle, whatever. Apparently they both work. So you like both. Obviously, it's nice as a designer to be able to have a variety of stuff. You don't want to always be writing the same thing. If you had complete freedom to write whatever you wanted, what would you kind of lean towards, though?
I mean, we do have complete freedom to write whatever we want because the DM's Guild has been the great democratizer for D&D. Literally anyone can publish damn near anything on the DM's Guild. And they have. Like I don't quite have enough time to write my Knowles Faerun CR 1 through 30 dissertation. I've got it about a third written. But I'd love to quit my day job and finish writing that. I also have another great thing that's going to be the Mimics of Faerun CR 1 through 30.
I'm down, like the new version of the Mimic from Rime of the Frostmaiden. I was all over that. I'm like, here's one variant, but what are the others?
Yes. There should be many more. Besides, Bolothamp Gadarm is an idiot and a very much unreliable narrator.
That is true.
Yup.
So you can write whatever you want, and that's true.
What's your dream project there, Ben?
I mean, I kind of get to say I just did my dream project. So I just got to do my DRW, which takes place in Fae, of all places. I was shocked that I was handed that assignment. So many thanks again, Alan.
You're welcome. He started writing, and he's like, well, we need someone to follow you who can do this in a short turnaround. I was like, have you messaged Ben? He's free. He's just as free as I am. We're both unemployed.
You know, that's true. I like to think we're fun employed because I'm doing so much more writing and game design than I would have been able to do back when I was doing my full time.
That's true. I was. I am now currently, I guess, gainfully employed again and doing much less game design.
Mazel tov.
Thank you.
And going to school at the same time, because why limit yourself to just a job and gaming? You might as well, like, all the things.
Yeah. You know, moderation, what is that even?
I have no idea. So
I don't know.
Soma 913 has a question.
Yes.
That says, care to share how to get into writing for the DM's Guild and getting published? So writing for the DM's Guild is dead simple.
That is true.
Write something, make a PDF of it, make an account on DM's Guild, hook your bank account up to DM's Guild or whatever. I've got a PayPal hooked to it, I think.
I'm going to post the link for the article that you wrote on your blog.
Oh, thank you so much. And then you upload the PDF to DM's Guild and it's for sale. It's officially for sale.
Go.
So that part is hella easy.
There are some guidelines and stuff you have to follow, but there's written documents there. And it's all Paige, of course, has detailed everything in excruciating detail in this blog
Paige
post.
and Ben.
Oh, Paige and Ben. That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
In the article, we point out that although the process of getting something published in DM's Guild is literally something that literally anyone can do, if you want to have something...
Literally.
Literally.
Sorry, you just used it twice in the same sentence and I couldn't help myself. Go ahead.
But making something that sells is a little different. For your first DM's Guild project, I strongly recommend you find someone else who's done something kind of like what you want to do and that sells well. Like, just start with the Adamantine bestsellers and start going down. Buy that project, buy a copy of that PDF, and see what they did. See what their art is like. See what their layout is like, and start small. Like, start small with, like, 3 random encounters for roadsides in Faerun, or 3 random encounters for a roadside in Ravenloft, and just start real small and then work up from there. You don't want to, like, your first entry into the DM's Guild should not be a 200-page setting book.
No, definitely don't, like, get in over your head with your first go at it. Like, take a bite size of it. And don't be afraid to ask for help either. Like, the DM's Guild community, that's one thing that I absolutely love about it. The DM's Guild community is so helpful and collaborative. Like, odds are if there's something you really, really, really love and you have questions about, like, how did they come up with this or how did they do this, like, post it on the discussion of it, or if you know how to contact the author on Twitter, like, reach out to them. Like, maybe they don't have time, maybe they're gonna say no, but they might be able to point you in the direction of somebody else, or they might be willing to help you. I know I have helped countless people, directed them towards examples of exactly what they're wanting to do, and be like, look at this layout, look at these, subclasses, whatever it is, and, like, yeah.
Yeah, and there's lots of good resources out there. Like, there's plenty of people who have gotten templates and whatever ready for publication.
Oh, which baby is that?
Hugin.
That's Hugin. Oh.
You can tell because he is large.
Well, I haven't seen them since February, so I don't know.
Oh, true. That they're a little larger, both of them. Hugin far more so, though. So how did you become a featured writer on DM's Guild? How many articles have you each written? We are not featured writers on DM's Guild. We have written 0 articles.
Well, we've written articles for our blog. We've written a bunch of adventures. We have the blessing that our adventures have done well and have been well received by the community. And thusly, the AL group have come back to us and asked us to write more, which we're very thankful for. We're not part of the Guild Adepts program, but I'm sure if you want to know more about that, Jenny can tell you all about it.
Yeah, that's a great question. How did I become a member of the Guild Adepts? So honestly, a lot of that, so, you know, of course I've done some writing and stuff, but a lot of that's tied back to even before I started writing, like my participation in the community. I was a community leader, regional coordinator for the Adventurers League program, and just like was out there constantly supporting and raising everyone up, and, you know, adding value to the D&D Adventurers League community. So when they were kind of looking for people who, you know, they wanted to be like, hey, you know, this, like, you know, you don't have to, it's not just about your writing. You can be the best writer that there is out there, but if you're an asshole, no one's going to ask you to do anything.
100%. Like, finding somebody, like, when people are looking for authors, like, there's 1,000 authors that can do whatever they're asking, but finding someone who writes what you want them to write, who can get it done on time,
That's a big one.
and doesn't make you want to fucking strangle them.
That's the biggest one.
Yes. Life's too short to work with assholes.
Yeah, the number of people where, like, I've thought about, like, approaching them on projects and then, like, gone back and started talking to people and be like, hey, I see you worked with him. And they're like, let me tell you something. And I'm like, please, lay it on me. I need to know before I start this. I ain't got time.
Spill that tea.
Oh, yeah. Oh, source. So, Dysons can confirm y'all write great adventures, source and DM. And you know what? Like, part of being able to write, like, a great adventure sometimes is finding that perfect art, and sometimes that art is the perfect map. So it's a very symbiotic relationship that we have with our cartographers like Dyson.
Yes, and
Sure.
I want to specifically call out Dyson logos in particular, because this person has made approximately a gazillion maps. Give or take 10%.
Yeah.
And the a huge number of them, like hundreds, I think,
are available for commercial use.
Are available free of use. You can put them in your adventure in the DM's Guild, and at the bottom of the map say by Dyson logos, and you can use that in your paid product. You don't have to pay him a cent. Dyson says it's about 300 plus. I believe that. But it's a lot of maps. Like, it is so easy to go to his website, say, yoink, I like that map, and write an adventure around that map.
That, and like I've talked about, you know, several times before, like, sometimes when you get an assignment to write an adventure, you don't really get enough direction on what to do. I had a panic once when somebody's like, hey, you want to write? And I'm like, sure. What do you want me to do? Write. And I'm like, yes, but
you need more than that. You need enough rope to strangle yourself, but there's got to be some rope rather than, you know, like,
I don't know.
Here's all the things. Do what you feel like doing. Like, what?
Yeah, if you give me too much rope, I can just wiggle out of it. Just gotta.
On the other hand, the Border Kingdoms, with a lot of their adventures, it's like, here are the Border Kingdoms, here's our background document, write whatever the fuck you want.
That was the one where I had a struggle, because it's just write something, set it in the Border Kingdoms. But, like, are there things I need to include, or the whatever? Something in the Border Kingdoms. I'm like, so that was where my adventure, the Sneaky Simon one, came in. I worked with it was based on something of my mom's, but whatever. But, like, sometimes, the point I was going to here is, like, your inspiration is that monster that you've always wanted to see in an adventure, or that piece of art you saw, or actually we have several adventures that we that Alan and I worked on for our most recent Theory Adds Lost Verses, where Dyson's maps were the inspiration. We're like, okay, we love this map. What can we make Greek about it? Theros about it, you know?
Yeah, no, and Dyson, when he publishes a map, usually comes up with a super descriptive name of it, like the Lost Caverns of the Black Crown of Disaster, that kind of come up with a
Yeah.
idea of
They
what
had
you
a
could do with it.
they had a thing. Yeah, it's all his fault too. Now I have to write a bunch of Simon's adventures in life and his entrepreneurial ventures because he made a map and it was called Simon's Tavern, and my mom's like, maybe Simon owned a tavern, and I'm like, okay, so we were started on this project and we already had some things, so now we have another thing, so now we're just gonna do all of these things.
Yeah, just link them together. Come on, you're an author.
Literally
You can
do
do
all the
this.
things.
We're doing multiple small projects now, Ben. Small bite-sized things, okay? My mom bought a monster manual as her first D&D book because it seemed like the obvious place to start.
Obviously. So are you doing like my mom's monster manual, like how
No.
Cass was doing my dad's?
No, because you know, it just wouldn't be the same. Like, you know, James is doing that. It's going to be great. We are doing the various supplements around Sneaky Simon, like his further adventures, his entrepreneurial ventures, and how you can take this over from Simon and become your own tavern owner, and things he recommends, skills you can do, magic items he's come across that he's really not got any use for anymore, so why don't you just spells that he's invented, no guarantee that they work as intended, you know, things of that nature.
And that sounds like a lot of fun. I wish I had a relationship with my parents where they would enthusiastically participate in D&D.
Yes, well, so on the flip side, you don't have to teach your mom how to use D&D Beyond.
Fair. Fair point.
You know,
would
this
not enjoy that.
this
I'm
has
already
been
calling it.
you know what though, as you know, multiple people here on the stream probably have interacted with my mom now. She tunes in fairly regularly. I don't know what she's doing today because she's not on, but whatever. She has a life. But, you know, she's super invested in this, and, like, you know, it's great and all. But you all have, not necessarily your mom and dad, but you've got a pretty good group of, like, I guess close friends, family, pretty much, that you work with on a lot of your stuff.
They are not our pre-generated party. They are the party we have picked. So yeah, we have the Feats and Fables crew. At the moment, we have a stream going on with them. It's every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can catch us on twitch.tv/Feats and Fables. And that is a fertile stomping ground and experienced game group that we run a lot of stuff by and see how it sticks, and learn a lot with.
And with Feats and Fables, when we say long-standing, Coda's the new guy. He's been there about a decade.
So we've got that, and it's a good mix of, and Paige says Coda's been there about a decade, but the flip side is Coda still will be like, you know, as someone who is newish to D&D, you need to not throw all this particular bullshit into whatever it is you're writing. And I'm like, got it, cool. And then also we have a great group on Wednesdays that does not have a stream yet.
Yet.
That has been, like, the Wednesday night game group, parts of it had been going for 20 years.
And that said, they're a great group that we run a lot of testing by as far as products. I don't think that there's an adventure we haven't tested with them that hasn't benefited. Like if I can give one piece of advice as an author to anybody who's an aspiring author, test it as many times as you can. Get as many people as possible look at it and tell you, you know, their take on it, or why it's difficult, or why things don't work in your brain the same way they work on the page, because that will save you so much and will make you a much better author.
Yes, get yourself a playtest group that isn't afraid to tell you when something you write fucking sucks.
And having that playtest group means that if one of your characters has a name that kind of sounds like ball wrinkles, they're going to notice it and laugh at it first, so you can change it before it goes to press. Like, the run it by the 11-year-old test is critically important for every name.
I have gotten to the point where I more or less just steal names from other places. Like, I am terrible about taking names from Magic the Gathering.
Making names is the worst.
And I put those as placeholders just so that I know there's a name in there that won't, you know, run into some problem. Like, sounds like a dick. And then the problem is when they don't make it out of it by the time it goes to publishing, which thankfully is very few times. And at that point, they're more of a cheeky wink than they are a crutch, right?
Very
Right?
few, not zero.
Well, you know, as a human, and I can attest that Ben is human, as are you. We make mistakes. We're not robots. Except for Alan, he's part robot, but that's a different matter.
That is true.
Yes, and we'll have him on eventually. I'm sure I'll talk him into coming on to talk about his methodology for all this because, you know.
I was going to say that I'm honored to finally be on the D&D Roundtable as a guest, and then I realized that it was not the D&D Roundtable. But I'm here with both of you, so that's great.
We can. So Paige and I co-host the D&D Roundtable. That was in that whole list of links I just posted a minute ago for everything that Paige and Ben do. And, you know, Ben, we would be delighted to have you on sometime. We'll just compare our schedules and see what works. I'm sure that, like, we probably have a list of, like, 40 million topics that Ben can join and be, the most helpful about.
Whenever you're scraping the bottom of the barrel, you know where to find me.
Oh, stop.
You're the good stuff that floats to the top. Calm down.
Yeah.
Wait, so now I'm a floater?
All right, moving on from that point, we should get the Feats and Fables team someday.
Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. You too. I love you both.
Love you right back.
We are getting kind of near to the end of this. Are there any topics that we haven't touched on that you want to cover, or from the chat, any questions that you have for Ben or Paige that haven't been answered yet? I guess kind of like, you know, while we give them a second to respond and everything, just kind of want to actually go back a second, take in the Wayback Machine. Like, a lot of people here might not know you as well as, you know, some of us do. And so, like, what do you actually share, like, how long you've been doing D&D, and then how long you've been doing content creation? And I guess, like, you know, maybe
You go first?
I mean, like, if I go first, it's going to pale in comparison to your Malthusian, experience. So
well, that's why you don't want to follow.
Okay,
that.
fine, I'll go first. So I will be 50 in February. I started playing D&D in 1982 with the Red Box. Nobody would play with me, so I had to bully my brother and some of his stinky little friends from the neighborhood into being my D&D players. And I've been content creating from the get-go because I have been the eternal DM.
Yeah, and if the content that you want to see isn't there, the only way to do it is to just make it
your damn self. Having said that, my first paid content was in kind of the late part of 3.5.
Okay, so that's still been it's been a hot minute still.
Early 2000s?
What is time?
At this point, like, early 2000s was like, I don't know if that was a week ago or if that was like 85 years ago. Yeah.
Oh
Who
god.
knows?
So yeah, and Ben, I know, like you said, not as long as Paige, but
yeah. So I started back in. There we go. So I started back in 3.5 with the 3.5 books. Doing a little bit of home game type stuff, but for the most part, I caught the tail end of Living Greyhawk and played a bunch of the modules you could freely download with my friends. And the great thing about that was that they provided a fertile area where I could modify things as I saw fit, because those mods didn't make a lick of sense if you were not playing them as part of the campaign.
Oh my god,
but
that's true.
Like, I was playing core mods because you get core mods just off the fucking website. Like, hell yeah. And me and my friends would we'd all challenge each other to get a new high score on the D&D test that you had to take to qualify to download the mods.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't think I ever took the D&D test to download. Somebody else always had the adventures. I didn't have to go download them, so now I need to find this D&D test.
I'm sure it exists. It was put on the internet, so it has to exist somewhere. But I really came into doing a lot of public play and cons, things like that in 4th edition, which I had the benefit of meeting my Feats and Fables teammates, Andrew Huang and Ron Frankie, during that time period, and then eventually even the illustrious Paige Leitman herself. But I did a lot of various stuff in 4E that, like, very little of it was designed, but it was a lot of cons, a lot of play. And then with 5th edition, that's really when I came to my own as far as a writer. And you can likely see a lot of my style originates from late 3.5 and 4, especially with how I treat monsters and traps and technical fights and destructible environments and things like that come from a time period where everybody had 18 powers that did various things to the environment, and leaders were leaders, and that meant that they could give people movement and temps and set up area of effects and things like that. So
yeah, we met during 4th edition, and we both really liked 4th edition. Like, really liked 4th edition. And that kind of, like, people have a variety of opinions on 4th edition, but 4th edition absolutely informs the way we design things. Wouldn't you say?
Definitely. I mean, I put a blog up on our website, benandpagewrite.com, relatively recently about how you can basically. So 4th edition had a lot of things that people didn't like, but its math was solid, and a lot of its encounter design stuff, much of which was done, as I recall, by a good friend, Rob Schwab, who is a fucking genius when it comes
100%
to
agree.
How D&D works, as well as other game systems. And like, just going back and stealing cool ideas and tricks that your players are not going to expect from those 4th edition monsters will make your game better. Full stop.
Is that your puzzle blog?
No, that's not my puzzle blog. There's one that's I believe let me go find it while Paige talk about things.
Yeah, the last 2 are the Saltmarsh one and the puzzle blog.
Yeah, it's a little bit past that.
The puzzle blog is hilarious because he wrote that one. He hates puzzles.
So here's the thing. I hate puzzles when I'm a player. But one of the things I was going to talk about earlier is when you get into tier 3, you need to find ways that will challenge your party. And when you're looking at things that are specifically either traps in a dungeon, like were set up in 917, or things that are set up by fans, such as in DRW, there's really smart people that don't have the time to devote, a casual archmage to, hey, make sure this thing happens all the time. They're going to set up traps. They're going to figure out ways to make sure the people in the know get through and the people who don't get hurt.
They're going to set up magical symbols in the ostensibly abandoned manor.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And we pulled out all the stops on 917 with puzzles and tricks. Like, there's a maze in there that I find not trivial to solve. Once I finally did solve it, I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to put one of those in an adventure. And some other counting puzzles and some word puzzles, because when you're tier 3, that's the best way to keep your players entertained.
And I mean, I have one of, at least I think, the best mentors when it comes to D&D design, who's Sean Molly. And he did a ton of stuff back in 3 and 3.5 and 4, a bunch of Living City, Living Death, Living Greyhawk type stuff. And he excellently uses puzzles to challenge the party as well as interesting environments. And I try to take those leanings to make the play be more interesting and have players think outside of what's going to happen on my next turn.
I love a good Sean Molly puzzle. Like, what was it, the first open?
Yeah.
So good.
Oh, my table at Origins, we solved that puzzle first. I mean, I solved that puzzle. So I am naturally a fan of all of your puzzles, Paige. 917 as well. my group was like, we don't like puzzles, and I'm like, good news, I have the answer.
Well, not only that, I think there's a sidebar. We have some really funny sidebars in that adventure. Funny to us, at least. And one of the sidebars is, I hate puzzles, which gives the DM instructions on how not to torture their players.
I actually did go back and read that sidebar because John was laughing at it when we were running it online. Because, like, you know, the rest of the players in the group who hate puzzles started complaining, and he's like, haha, there's a sidebar for that. Meanwhile, Connor and I are like, hold on, we're gonna solve this. Give us a second. I'm gonna get it first, Connor. No, you're gonna get it first. No, I'm gonna get it first.
So Dan has a question about, speaking of puzzles, how do you make sure they get solved? So my design philosophy is, and this extends to puzzles and everything else, is to make sure there's at least 2 ways to solve any encounter, as to whether that's combat and exploration, social and combat, social exploration, and exploration for this person includes puzzles, includes skill checks, includes anything that is not, you know, me talking to the DM being portraying an NPC or me rolling combat. So it's a very wide variety of things, and I like to build in ways to get around it. Admittedly, the ways to get around it will likely be pretty difficult and or cost you something, getting back to that same design principle of there's many things that can cost you that are not just hit points.
And you have to be, when you're looking at your adventure, you have to look at every single encounter and say, if the PCs get TPK'd here, what happens? Mm-hmm. If the PCs fail to overcome whatever the challenge is in this encounter, what happens? Mm-hmm. If your answer to either one of those questions is, they just don't play the rest of the mod,
that's
and
no
you promised them 6 hours of content, that sucks. I don't like that. I would hate to be that person. So you need to have some accounting for what's gonna happen. And if your adventure, if you're writing it and you discover like your whole thing hinges on being able to make a DC 18 Arcana check, or you can't go ahead, then you've got to start building some alternate routes around that, because inevitably you'll have a party of all barbarians come through there at some point and be very, very sad.
Rigged.
I mean, I need a Rise of the Frost Maiden excellent rated notebook.
Congratulations, Ben, you win.
Thank you very much, Jenny. I'll pick that up from you at the next con we go to together, which hopefully will be sometime next year after everything is better.
Or the next,
I mean, you might be hanging on to it till 2022, though.
The next time.
I am hanging on to gifts for Amy Zura that I will just hold on to until I see her, because it's all cute unicorn-themed stuff that I'm just like, she needs this.
Well, I had a pug-themed gift for Bill Benham that I held on to for 21 months, so, you know, I believe in you. I finally remembered to take it with me. But goodness gracious. So I kind of agree with that, I guess, mentality on the puzzles thing. I like to go with the, I guess, the phone a friend method. You've got 2 ways to phone a friend, as it were, and ask for help, but, you know, you've either got to spend the resources, have someone able to you know, convene with your deity, and you're literally phoning a friend as one simple workaround, or you're gonna expend some resources, some you know, you can go back and sacrifice your magic items or your spell slots or whatever to someone who has been in this temple, been in this ruin, been in this whatever, and they're like, oh, okay, so, you know, this ruin's dedicated to whoever, and, you know, one of their favorite things is this, and you're like, how the fuck does that help us? And you go back in there and you reread it and you're like, oh, okay. It wants to know if they like pie better than cookies.
So, true facts. I was either playtesting something or I was running something. You had Bull there, and I put down a puzzle, and Ben's like,
Divine Intervention!
Yep. And I'm like, fine, fucking roll it. DDAL09-17-01. I'm like, fine, the fucking puzzle dissolves in flames.
Let me tell you what though, when you're a cleric and you're like, I have no I don't really know as a player, I've got no real idea, and you're like, I'm just gonna try divine intervention, and it actually works, and you're like,
that's the reaction you just got right there.
I believe I divine intervention. I don't know if it was I don't know if it was 917 or the one right before or the one right after, but I divine intervention one of those, and the whole party, we were like, well, we're just fucked here, and then I like did that, and then like we were all like, yes. Helm has protected us. It was probably like one of the most satisfying moments in the game. The best puzzle for players is overthinking. And Thomas is right. I did have his dice that I got for him at Origins or Dragon Con or somewhere. I was only supposed to get one, and I had them for so long that I just started at each con I went to getting an extra one and adding it to the stash for Thomas. I was like, sorry, here's some more.
So the meanest puzzle I have ever seen was written by my dear friend Eric Mingy, who I adore, and it was in 3.5. It was a Living Greyhawk. It was a mod from Jeff, which is kind of the Delmarva area. No, it was regardless. It was from the Duchy of Jeff, and they were lousy with the Fae up there, and we were doing Fae stuff, and there was this big door that we had to get through, and it had all these levers and buttons, and it had like a bas relief of Grimm's fairy tales, and like the deer's antlers moved, and you could move the panels around, and like we sat there and fucked with that thing for I don't know how long. And finally we just gave up and started bashing on it and tried to get through that way, and then found some monsters. That's fine. So afterwards I went to Eric and I'm like, what the hell is the solution to that door puzzle? And he's like, oh, no, that's a Fae door puzzle. There is no answer. The only way to get through is to break it. And I'm like,
fuck you.
I think part of my subconscious was taking that idea towards the humility puzzle, where the answer is literally just saying, I don't know. And it's preying upon the same thing of players overthinking things and being like, oh, well, I can't see it. I'm going to cast, I'm going to do an Arcana check. I'm going to cast Divine. I'm going to cast True Sight. I'm going to cast blah. I'm going to feel around it. I'm going to do blah. And it's just like, it's a trap literally for those people. I love you. And it's like, go ahead, put your hand in there.
Stick your hand in the box. It's fine.
And then going back to also with puzzles, I had the pleasure, and I was sure this was going to get cut, and somehow it didn't. So thank you very much to Greg. That's how I feel about most of my DRW mod. Is
all 95
in addition to being able
pages of it,
99 pages according to the DM's Guild. Whoop whoop. Which
he got let off the leash, and he ran with it.
I mean, so I was told to make things challenging. I'm like, all right, this is cool. I'll just put these things in, and surely I will get pushback on this. Surely. And I didn't, which was amazing. I mean, I got pushback on a couple things, but let's be honest. There were a lot of things I got away with on that DRW mod that, thank you, Greg, if you're watching or listening or seeing this at some future point. I'm not sure why you didn't stop me, but more power to you, friend.
There were too many pages to read, see? You overloaded the program.
Yeah, I overloaded it, so I was able to shove additional things through.
Yeah.
But it got to the point where, like, there's a set of puzzles, and if you don't want to deal with the puzzles, you can just die. There you go. You just die. There's some resources.
But good news, in Thay, death is not the final stop.
I mean, the good news is you're with somebody that can bring you back, but, I mean, death is still a thing, so there's still some penalties
You
involved.
can just become undead, it's fine.
I mean, in tier 3, death is moderately inconvenient, tops.
It's inconvenient if you pissed off your cleric or if you don't have any NPCs nearby. But I mean, I have only ever once been the cleric in a high level party and been like, no, I told you not to do that, and you're dead now. This is not my fault.
It takes a lot of bravery to do that in a public game where you don't know everybody, because there can be some pushback to people facing consequences for
That is
their
true.
own damn actions.
I've never done that in a public game because that's not necessarily fair, because it could be that person's very first tier through game and they like legitimately didn't know the dangers they were walking their face into.
Or you don't know them and they're having a real bad day or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, I will give them
I actually
multiple
did see that
warnings.
once.
Multiple warnings still, though, that I strongly advise you not do that. Don't stand in the green stuff.
Standing in the fire is not usually a D&D problem. Like, people know that when you're drawing something on the board, it's like, ooh, GTFO.
That's so true. Okay, so, you started a little late, but we have reached the hour mark there. So, while I know I could keep the two of you here and we could just talk all day, at least, you know, as far as much conversation we have available, we don't have that much time in our lives.
I mean, set up a fire and we could also talk all night, but...
Oh, God. Your little fancy fire logs, those are the best.
I know, they're great. Miss y'all.
I know. Yeah, but with the lack of time and everyone needing to resume their daily lives, I am gonna go ahead and sadly call this episode to an end. So do you want to tell everyone where they can find you if they want to know more about you? There will be links below, but go ahead and...
I mean, like, I thought you already posted, like, literally everywhere to find all my things.
I don't know. Did I miss anything? I'll just
So
post
Ben
it
and Paige
again.
Wright, benandpaigewright.com has all of our adventures, or links to all of our adventures, as well as our blog posts that Paige and I have come up with. Paige has done some great ones on how to get started with your first GM's Guild title. I've tried to share as many thoughts as I can that are not crazy, or are crazy enough where people will be like, maybe.
Or you might find a rant about mermaids of color. I mean, there's no telling what you'll find there.
Yeah, but that's still a good rant. Like elves of color and, you know, making sure your games are more diverse.
Yeah, if you want a good rant about diversity, inclusion, accessibility, any of that, the gay agenda, anything Ben, Paige, myself, our own, we can turn that topic into a good rant.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be part of that. High five, yo.
High five.
On top of that, DM Guilds, you can find me just searching Ben Heisler. It'll invariably come up with adventures by Ben Heisler and Paige Leitman, because I have the best co-author in the world. And then last but not least, the other way to find me, especially for game design based stuff, is on Twitter, which is at Zentarum, as in the good, aligned group that reforms principles and makes sure that shit gets done. PR, so Zentarum Public Relations, amusingly, at Twitter. So Zentarum PR is where you can find me. I'm happy to answer questions about mods, happy to answer anything that you're talking about as far as stuff and as game design stuff, let's be clear. As Jenny pointed out earlier, I am always looking for more projects to be working a part of.
And you couldn't find a better author.
I agree with all of that, except for one thing. I have the best co-author in the world.
No, I do.
This is a problem Paige and I have.
We're gonna have a fight.
This is the same problem Paige and I have when we're trying to publicize or talk about anything good on the round table.
I always put the other one's name first.
I always say Paige is best, and she always says I'm best. So you know, you've got the same thing. Paige says you're better, and you're like, no, you. You know, this is a good argument to have.
I have one more to add.
Okay.
Feats and Fables, you can join us to play every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/featsandfables, all one word. And Paige DM's there, and it's amazing. Yeah, and you should watch. And so for my horrible French accent and her good DMing. Even
if you're not available to watch the whole thing, go ahead and give them a follow and maybe like put it on in the background, silence it or whatever. I think you guys are trying to get affiliate status still.
What's the first one? We have affiliate. We don't have partner.
Oh, partners.
Not yet.
Partner's hard.
Partner's hard.
Partner's real
hard. So we do have a YouTube channel that has all of our shows on it. If you'd like to catch up with Feats and Fables, that is 100% Paige homebrew, and it's wild. It's absolutely wild. You can find the Feats and Fables stuff wherever you get podcasts as well, if you just want to listen to us. You mentioned my Twitter. I am Paige Leitman. That's Leitman on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. And I'm happy to talk game design, marine science, you name it. I'm good.
Yep. And if you want to hear more from Paige and I and various guests, you can catch us on the Roundtable, part of the Tome Show Network. We're on Twitter, DND Roundtable, and all that jazz. And Facebook, and we have an email, and you find us on the website. I linked
Instagram
there, and it'll all be down in
Yeah.
the panel below with all the guest information that we have.
Yeah.
And with that, I just want to thank you both so much for being here today. It's been an absolute joy, and that's going to be it for this episode of The Designer's Den. Tune in next week, and I'll have John Connor's self on, and we'll be talking about his design philosophy and mental health in RPGs, as well as LGBT inclusion and other diversity in gaming. Representation matters. And so that'll be next week, 4 o'clock Central, and can't wait to see you all again then. Bye!
Bye. Thanks.